Streaming is on.
The beginning, we spent like, I don't know, I think almost 10 minutes, not kidding. Uh, Almost 10 minutes I was uh, trying for him to tell me the, the one of the most important workflow policies that we have, which is the one that we need to have the responsibility organizing open right in front of us. And I had written the responsibility, the policy, right? The policy was written there. And I kept saying, so Maud, what is the policy order for this? It's written right there. It's written right there. And it took so long to just make him read that sentence. Right? So I said, because I don't know, maybe he just overcomplicates things. So I told him to take it easy, to listen well, don't be shy, make ask questions and everything, and the same thing that I see with Joyce is that she, I don't know, she doesn't listen. You know, you tell her something, and I don't know why this happens, but you need to repeat things 1,000 times. So,
Yeah, that's what I find too. You hire people and you just say it over and over and over again. Unfortunately, it's not just a thing in relationship to um, old world and stuff like that. And also third world countries or anything. It's like you can hire people in the United States for you know $20 an hour, and they're
yeah,
gonna
no, no,
listen to
yeah, no,
so
I'm not at all
money.
making. Yeah, no, no, I'm not making at all any assumptions that based on their culture or where they're living. I'm just saying that
Yeah, but
in,
I think that's
in
where we
general,
come in.
people. Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that's where we come to basically. Our foundation in terms of getting work done is the policy. So it's like we need better, real-time tactical ops. So like when problems occur, people are addressing them in real time and moving it forward. Like, I mean, Joyce is perfectly capable. She should have a schedule, and we should know when she's working, and we should know what her responsibilities are. I mean, this is not too much to ask. If she can't do that, she really shouldn't be allowed to work, right? No one should be allowed to work if they can't have a schedule and know what responsibilities. Like, we should all know what they're doing. That's like, I mean, how can you ask for money to get paid to do something, and when we don't even have a schedule, you don't know what you're doing? Like, it's just you have no responsibilities. It's like not okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to. Definitely, as I said again, I mean, the onboarding, the communication, the training, it's fundamental, right? But
Yes, but more importantly than this quote special training time that's always this hypothetical. Everyone's always talking about, oh, we need more training, we need more training. And then we schedule 5 sessions. We have 6-hour long main sessions. We do training after training after training, and people are like, oh, we didn't get any training. And it's like, what about that 6-hour session when you could have prioritized whatever training you wanted? And then like, the what's better than doing training after training after training, that then people still want more training because they just want like an excuse to not do the work. What's much better than that is just policies that you either learn to do the policies or you can't work, right? And if you follow the policies, the work gets done, right? That's the training right there, right? You learn by following the policies and by breaking policies and doing policy tracking. That's the best training that we have.
yeah, I said the same exact things to Moth at the end of this session. Yeah. I mean that I think he's a bit scared to do mistakes, right? I told him, look,
That's the problem. Is that
we expect you to
that's
do a lot of mistakes.
Yes, exactly. That's the number one problem that I find with a lot of people from old world is their fear of making mistakes, and then they don't do anything, right? They rather do nothing than make a mistake, and that's a huge problem. So we need to make sure that we have a clear policy. Maybe this is a policy proposal that basically, if you don't do work to prevent mistakes, that is against policy. So I'm not sure how to write that out, but there would be some sort of proposal where we can show that somebody is purposely not stepping up and doing work for the simple context that they're worried about making mistakes. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out as well how to improve that.
Well, it's really one person at a time, you know. So it's like for Joyce, like I would just start with, you know, at Joyce. So,
No, I'm gonna work on the
uh,
the, the worker criteria. I think is gonna be
that's
a
how
bit.
it starts with Joyce. It's just like, you know, what are your responsibilities? What's your schedule,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
what else is there to say? And then if she responds like, oh, I don't have a schedule, oh, I don't have, you know, responsibilities that are clear, then it's like, okay, well, Joyce, you can't work. Sorry, like you don't meet the minimum basic criteria. So until you have clear responsibilities and a clear schedule, like we can't continue you for working. Right? That's and then guess what? Boom, she'll have a schedule and she'll have responsibilities because otherwise she can't work. Right? It's that simple, right? That's how it
Abs-
typically works.
Absolutely.
All right. So going to the um, other side of things in terms of the scheduling, right? So with the vortex scheduling,
Yeah.
what we're gonna have is we're gonna have like, you know, basically you could have, call it like a trajectory um, you know, session focus, right? Or I don't think focus is the right word. So you have a session trajectory, trajectory session, um, you know, let's just call it a trajectory session, right? So you have a scheduled trajectory session, right?
Uh huh.
And then within that scheduled trajectory session, um, it's required to have a clear focus, right? And then within that focus, it is required to have a clear responsibility assessment, right? So I think the best way to say it is that we can schedule, you know, everyone can sign up for scheduled trajectory sessions. And this will be a regularly scheduled trajectory session, right? So regular scheduled trajectory session. And then also you can even have a clear, you know, a clear focus. This can also be regular scheduled. But then the idea is that everyone can sign up for the regular session, which means that they are required to do a check-in before the session to clarify goals, outcomes, and responsibilities for that session. In other words, you know, priorities and topics, right? So I
Hmm.
think that would be the easiest way to set up, you know, to set up the model, you know, so that because we already have regularly scheduled check-ins, right? So basically, once you've communicated about the priority and the work that's being worked on, then you would finalize your actual schedule, you know, actual session schedule or real-time session schedule. Does that make sense? Hello? Did I lose you? I think I lost you. Alberto? Hello?
Sorry, Jay, I got disconnected.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm back. It's the whole day. It's doing like this. I don't know my Wi-Fi. I don't know what they're doing. Anyways, yes, yeah. I mean, we have regular scheduled sessions where we want to have possibly multiple BTs happening at the same time, right? And and we don't have. I mean, the focus. We just have the general umbrella focus, but we need to check into before the session happens. We all need to be on the same page on what like the more specific responsibility and yeah, I mean, what we're going to work on exactly. What's going to be the responsibility of the process? Or, correct.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, if we decide that we're going to have a VA session, and still need to be decide to bring work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but Joyce should have work regardless. I mean, I think it might be a problem that she doesn't know what work is, right? And what is defined as work, and having self-driven responsibilities. Like maybe she just doesn't understand what that is, but she also doesn't seem to understand responsibilities in that, like, she still has not done a single coordination effort in relationship to the follow-up in the list for the support alliance. You know, she just doesn't seem to understand it. She thinks that all she has to do is just send out a reminder, right? Which again, reminders have nothing to do with being the support alliance manager, right? Reminders is a separate responsibility. That is basically any session gets a reminder. That's not her job. We're not paying her to just do a reminder. This doesn't help, right? That's like all she does is send out a reminder.
Yeah, and especially one other thing, these reminders that she's sending, they're not following any. There's no responsibility organizing on these reminders. Like, I don't think I don't believe there is, right?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at the one that she just sent out, so if I come up here, it's under public support alliance, and you go to org support, and it says, you know, EST UTC -6 -0 +6 +12. So it meets required standards for doing a reminder.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, but I mean, she copied and pasted from previous messages, right? She should know. Like, for example, if you ask her, where is the responsibility organizing? What work are you doing? Okay, I'm doing reminders. Perfect. And where is the responsibility organizing for that? I don't think she could produce it, right?
Yeah, and that would be a huge problem, because if all she, again, it just comes back to the idea of like, if all you're doing is thinking about yourself and thinking about your own work, you're missing the entire point. The whole point is that Joyce needs, as you know, she needs to be a leader in the organization, and she needs to be able to work with a new recruit and train them on how to do reminders. That's the whole point of all of it, right? Because we don't want Joyce doing reminders. We want Joyce to train other people to do reminders. And if she doesn't know where the responsibility of organizing is, it's going to be very difficult for her to train someone else.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. Like, sorry, I'm gonna take one more minute, right? So, so we worked, Joyce and I, we worked on the reimbursements, right? Mamoon asked me to review the reimbursement, and there's more reimbursement. We're just all over the place and disorganized and messy and stuff. So they're right. Let's get to it. Let's organize them. Let's do a good work. And part of the work was obviously doing a very detailed, updated responsibility organizing. Right. So then she stepped up and asked her, do you want to, since you have the email that usually we sent the receipts, you want to do that? You want to gather the receipts, right? And she said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I reminded her if she was doing that because some days passed, nothing was happening. But that's not the point. The point is that she then asked me to review what she did, right? And I asked her, right, but what did you do? What step are you asking me to review? Or she said, I mean, she couldn't answer. And then I go see the work, and there is nowhere I can see that the work that she did was anywhere instructed in the responsibility organizer. Responsibility organizer said to just create folders and save the receipts, a folder for each worker, and save the receipts of the worker into the folder. That's it. Point. She might have done maybe a better job. I don't know. I mean, I think it's not necessary, but she did a good job. She created a spreadsheet for each worker, and she copied the receipts, right? Which was not expected. The work is much easier.
No, it's always done that.
But my point
That's
is
how
that
everyone's always done it.
huh?
Every single month I've ever seen it, and just looking at all of the previous reimbursements, they always copy the receipts into the spreadsheet. That's what they always do.
Who copies the?
Everyone who I've ever seen work on the reimbursements just copies the receipts into the spreadsheet, and all the receipts are always in the spreadsheet. So in terms of following what other people have done in the past, that's exactly what I would expect her to do. And we also want to align the responsibility organizing based on what people actually do, as opposed to, creating steps that aren't necessarily how people function, right? But the main thing here is that you want to accomplish the goal, right? The goal is always the priority.
Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. But the point is that I couldn't see anywhere that this was instructed in any step or any task of the responsibility organizing, right? So
Maybe it should be updated.
exactly. So I said, oh, she did a great job. So since we did such a session centered on doing the work and documenting the work that we were doing, but after when she updated the team, she said, all right, you remember that I asked her to do policy tracking, right? Because she again said the focus of the session was the responsibility organizing. No. But anyways, so I went into the responsibility organizing and I expected to see it updated with the work that she did. And of course, it wasn't updated, right? So, and since she couldn't tell me exactly what was the step of the work that she was asking me to review, this makes me think that she just did the work the way that she thought should have been done. Maybe she saw the. But the point is that it's very. I don't know. I mean, I think the worker criteria definitely. I mean, yesterday I wanted to, but then I opted for. I don't know if you saw my message. I asked yours to review. I opted on the deadlines first, but for tactical ops, deadlines update, monthly deadlines updating, and then I'm gonna start with the worker criteria, because without that, it's just you have no way to make sure that they do the minimum to understand the basics on how they're supposed to work. If you want to have by our model, that's the worker criteria. It's the other way. In the end, it's all our fault. I mean, it's our fault because I see it's our fault. But I mean, the point is that it's very difficult to. I don't know. I don't know if I had so many problems as well. Maybe at the beginning, I don't remember to understand all of this. But I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's just a bit.
So, in terms of just like getting overall comprehension here, I feel like the most important thing that you do wrong still is that you go off and you do all the work by yourself, and you have this ridiculous excuse that like, oh, I don't want to bother Jay or something like that, which doesn't make any sense at all, right? So it's like, when you're doing the tactical ops and when you're trying to set up the policies and you're trying to get everything done, going off and doing it by yourself is not going to help the team. What's going to help the team is if we work it all together and build a process that everybody's engaged in and active with,
Sorry, 1 second. No, I agree with you, and this I'm going to improve, and I'm going to start bothering you a lot, especially for work verification, review, double, triple check. But I mean, the thing is that I went off doing the work because I mean, there's so much work, and I mean, some work needs to be happen on SDR. I mean, self-driven. Otherwise, and a lot more async work also as well.
Yes, I mean, it's good to do async work. It's good to have self-driven responsibilities and everything. But the idea of having a lot of work, that's where it's so important to be working together to make sure that the systems, processes, and specifically, individual responsibilities are organized in a way that are, I mean, we just constantly need to be simplifying, streamlining, making, and connecting the dots together. Like, when things overlap, we should be able to save energy, by utilizing that responsibility in multiple places or whatever. But the point is that if you go off and you do it by yourself, what typically happens is that the models get more complicated and overlap even more,
Yeah, but I mean, but the problem is that there was no responsibility organizing for the deadlines, monthly deadlines, updates, or weekly check-ins. So
okay, I don't know if that's necessarily true. The weekly check-in should be under the general responsibilities, but the point is that that can easily be fixed. Like, like there's no reason for there not to be responsibility organizing, and there's no reason not to go over it together and prioritize it. Also, on that note, another interesting thing related to the Sensei model that I put together is that the training component and the educational component, which we very rarely get to, right, is beautiful. Like, it's like, every single policy, every single responsibility step, every single like component of everything that we're doing is part of the model, right? So just to remind the model, there's the decision making, there's the education, and then there's the value, right? If you have the decision making for example, let's say a policy, in this case, we could use the example of having your responsibility organizing open while you're doing the work, right?
Yeah, that's already a policy. Yeah,
I know it's already a policy.
Yeah.
Right, but in the Sensei model, the way you present that policy is as a proposal, right? Like, do you agree to the existing policy that whenever you're doing work, you need to have your responsibility open, and do you understand it and everything like that? And then that's the education, right? The education is, here is the information about why this policy exists, how to find more information about this policy, how to find responsibility organizing, and then they vote on it. So every single worker, Joyce, everybody would vote. For example, they're like, oh, I don't really understand this. What does it mean to have responsibility organizing? And they vote 5 or they vote 6 or whatever it is. Maybe they don't vote a 7. And then it's like, okay, there's something wrong with the policy. And there's something wrong with the education about the policy, right? And then by going through the education, improving the policy, improving the understanding of the policy, and fixing the responsibility organizing and fixing all the information, that is the value. And then the value is issued based on the time and energy improving the entire system, as well as doing the education and learning and voting. So you're getting paid to vote, you're getting paid to learn and be trained, and you're getting paid, right, to implement the value. So that's the foundation of the Sensei model in the context of training and decision making and improving all of these systems that we never seem to get to. And so I feel like that being applied to the tactical ops and all of these other components is super duper essential, that we are going through them as a team, not just going off on our own, and but does that sort of make sense, or
No, I mean it makes perfectly sense, Jay. Yes, I mean for me, and I was always saying that, and then I did such a poor job for the 1099, so it was very shock for me, and I went back in doing that, which is part of what I love. I really love doing that, right? Documenting what the work you're doing, because this is gonna help the next worker. So it makes me really passionate. So I love doing the responsibilities organizing, right? So, and I'm not starting any work since what happened. Since I said, right, I need to go back on track. I'm not starting any work if I don't have the responsibility organizing open, and if it's not there, I create it immediately, and I do it, and I create. And,
okay, but is that
yeah,
the process? Is that the correct way to do the responsibility organizing? Is that how you're supposed to do it? Let's just write down exactly what you said. What I heard you say was, right, I will not start work without responsibility organizing. I look for the responsibility organizing. If I can't find it, I start a new one immediately. That's what I heard you say. Is that what I heard? Is that correct? Is that what you said?
yeah. I mean, like for example, the
Hold on.
yesterday
Is this
the
correct? Yes or no? Is this
yeah,
what you said?
correct.
Okay, so
Yeah,
but is this
it's what I
policy?
said. Yeah.
Is that correct policy? Because again, what you do and what you say is what you train other people. So is that the correct policy?
I mean,
What
I
are the
remember.
steps?
I remember. I read the responsibility organizing on how to create the responsibility organizing.
Okay,
There
but
is.
what are the steps? This is nothing complicated, right? What's the
Yeah,
first
I
step?
mean, first you do
So
the
basically,
checklist.
you don't want to do the work without the responsibility organizing. So that's
Yeah,
great. So that could be step 0. Do not start work without responsibility organizing. So then what do? You look for the responsibility organizing, right? So that sounds
yeah.
good. Look for responsibility organizing. What do you do if you can't find it? What if Joyce can't find it?
I ask about it.
So why is that missing? Right? So what
Yeah,
you said is incorrect, right? You skipped a step, a very, very important step.
yeah. I didn't ask for it. Correct. Yeah.
And who do you ask?
Yeah, obviously, you
Yeah, you
somebody
ask
that
me.
somebody that might know
Yeah, you ask the
what it
team,
is.
right? Ask the
Yeah,
team
obviously.
for responsibility organizing link. And that's what you don't do. You don't communicate with me about things that you think are mundane or that you think are just not necessary. You don't want to bother me or whatever it is. You skip the step, right? And then you're not working as a team anymore. As soon as you skip any step that involves communicating with the team and communicating with me, you're breaking down the team cohesion and the actual team collaboration that we're trying to build in the community, right? So it's very,
Mhm.
very bad to break that, to not do that. And it's against
Absolutely.
policy because you're
Yeah,
not following the training.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then you just do it nonchalantly as if it's like nothing. And then everyone else picks up on that as well. And then no one else is going to want to ask. Why should anyone bother Alberto? He's busy, right? There's no difference. If you're not willing to bother me, then everyone else is going to learn that they're not going to want to bother you.
Yeah, like
Right?
for example, today I we had this session, and Moth was online. We were all online before this session, and I was waiting for him to check in or to say, "I'm ready. Let's start work." And it didn't happen yet.
I don't know what that has to do with it, but if Moth doesn't want to do the session, you don't have to do the session. It's not
No,
your
it was scheduled,
responsibility.
but he didn't want to. What you said, he didn't want to bother me. He was waiting for me to tell him. He told me after when we met. He said, "No, but I didn't want to." Wait, what did you say? I don't remember exactly what he says, so I'm not gonna do
Okay. But anyways,
hearsay, but yeah.
but the point here is that the thing that you did wrong is you said if I can't find it, then I started a new responsibly organizing sheet immediately, right? That's not correct. If no one in the team can find the responsibility organizing, then you start a new one, right? And then number 4 would be that, if later you do find a an additional responsibility organizing for the same responsibility, you're required
I merge them.
to link them. No, you're required to link them together. You don't merge them. You just link them together. Typically highlighted.
No, I keep. Yeah, no, I'm not. I mean, I'm not merging creating. Yeah, I mean, take the old one, take the information for the old one, and I update the new one. Like I do this because
That's not the correct policy, right? The correct policy is that when you're doing the responsibility organizing, you do the responsibility organizing, you improve it, everything. But the moment you find that there's a duplication of spreadsheets and the same information is in more than one location, right? You don't start copying and pasting information and fixing the responsibility. You don't do that at all, right? You just immediately link the 2 spreadsheets together. That's it. That's the policy, right? Because there's no guarantee you're going to finish the process of improving it, right? So you're not going to delete one. You're just going to link them together, and that's it. And then over time, we can decide how we're going to deal with it. And that's the actual work of doing the work and improving the responsibility organizing. But that's not, you don't want to confuse people about what they're supposed to do in that situation. You are not supposed to basically copy all the responsibility organizing from one place to another place. I mean, that could take hours to fix the responsibility to make it perfect between 2 responsibilities. That's not, we're talking about 5 seconds, copy and link the links between the 2 things in less than 30 seconds.
But okay, but what I do is that if the responsibility organizing is on a document, since we want to bring everything on spreadsheet, if I do some work.
Yeah,
right?
But that has nothing to do with finding the responsibility and having the link for it. That's
I don't delete anything. I don't delete anything. What I do is I copy all the information from the responsibility organizing that exists. I put it in the new spreadsheet, and then as I go through the work, I don't do work. My work is never updating a responsibility organizing. This is something that I keep saying.
Yes, we know that.
So what I do is I copy all the information. I put a link on top in the responsibility organizer that says this document is old. Please find here the link of the updated.
But
So
again,
the information that's there, and then as I do the work, so you will see a bunch of responsibility organizing that a part is super organized and the other one is just something copied and pasted because I haven't gotten to do the work. Because when I do the work, while I do the work, I'm improving. I'm seeing what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is you're skipping ahead 8 steps. Like I'm just talking about the beginning of making sure start your work with responsibly organized. The policy is that when you work, you need to have responsibly organizing. If you don't have the responsibility organizing, this is what you do. The last thing we want to do when we're training for this policy is to train people and say that spend 3 hours while you're working organizing all the responsibility and copying and pasting between the 2 different responsibility organizing locations and That's not the training. All right, that's just leave that out of it. The policy is very simple and straightforward, that you're required to have the responsibility organizing open while you're doing the work, right? So these are the steps to making sure that happens, right? Everything else that you just said is not applicable to this particular policy.
Yeah, so I make sure I always have that's not true. I don't make sure because, as we just said, I skip frequently this thing that I need to ask. That's correct. I don't communicate properly with the team. Yeah, that's true.
But also, if you have 2 responsibility organizings of the same thing, you link them together. Period. Done. Anything more or less than that has nothing to do with this particular responsibility, right? Because it's not about you and how you're using the responsibility or anything. It's simply just making sure the team knows and is notified that there are 2 copies of the same thing that eventually addresses, right?
Yeah, I always do that. Absolutely. The documents are all linked or all the info tabs are always with the right links, so you can always find the responsibility organizing, the older responsibility organizing from the updated responsibility
But
organizing.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have a responsibility organizing link and there's another location where there's also responsibility organizing for the same thing, they must both be linked at the top of the responsibility organizing so that they're both linked together. Like anytime there's two of the same thing, it is required to be bright yellow at the top so that everyone knows there's two of them. Like it's not something where you randomly have to find, click on 3 different tabs and find like the info tab and then look at the 15th line to try to find something. That is not the policy at all.
Yeah, I mean, I usually put it in the important links. Like you have the goal, you have the description, you have.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the information for the spreadsheet. The info tab is for the entire spreadsheet. We're talking about a specific responsibility organizing link. All right? Are you following me? Every responsibility has its own link. If there are 2 links to the same responsibility, that needs to be documented, period. And that needs to be documented at the top of the responsibility organizing, nowhere else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfectly sense, and that's why when I create a updated responsibility organizing in a spreadsheet, I link immediately in the top of the old responsibility organizing. There, always the new responsibility organizing. As I create the info tab where I link the old responsibility organizing, where I write this is old, and
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that's not technically correct. That doesn't technically follow the policy. Right? It's a good start, but technically the policy would require that each responsibility, if it's duplicated, would need to be highlighted at the top of the responsibility organizing itself, not the info tab.
Yeah, if it's a document. So in the spreadsheet as well, you mean we should have the link? But I put it in the important links. There is a section that's called important links. I always put it there. The
Is
old
it highlighted yellow at the top? It needs to be highlighted yellow.
No, it's not highlighted yellow at the top. No, for me, highlighted yellow things are things that needs to be updated or need to work on, or
of course. Yes, that's exactly what it means. That there's 2 documents of the same thing. It needs to be addressed, and eventually they need to be combined or changed, or one needs to be deleted, or whatever needs to happen. The team needs to address it. It is a, eventually you're supposed to only have one of everything. That's the whole point. But that's not the responsibility of Joyce or Moth or Mamoon to decide what they're going to start deleting. That is against policy for someone just to start randomly deleting things, right, without it being double, triple, quadruple checked, right? So the policy is very simple. Just stop everything, highlight and link the 2 things together that are duplicated at the very top, and highlight it yellow, and then that's it. Move on. That's the policy. Nothing more, nothing less. You're giving like 10 additional steps, and it just creates confusion and layers of confusion. And that's how you're training people. They're not going to do the work. They're not going to actually do what the policy is, which is what we need, which is that if there's a duplication of something, it needs to be highlighted yellow at the top so that everyone knows and everyone can find it, so it can be addressed eventually in the future as a team when we're double, quadruple, and checking everything. Right? It's not complicated. This is not a new policy at all. This is how we operate. Right? And this is important because step 3 here, if no one in the team can find the responsibility organizing, then you start a new one. If that new one is a duplication, then that will still be connected to the previous one. So it's perfectly fine to start a new responsibility organizing if you can't find the old one, because step 4 is that later, if you do find an additional one, you immediately do this step in 30 seconds, and then you following policy. Right?
Yeah.
And that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about the whole process of like, oh yeah, we're copying this entire document into spreadsheets, and we're changing everything from spreadsheets to documents and all that stuff. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the simple policy, which is that when you're starting work, you need to have your responsibility organizing open. That's it. That's all we're talking about.
Right.
So anyways, you can see how important it is, the idea that the process of sensei actually, is it's an educational. Again, you're bringing decision making, education, and the economics and the value into the same experience, right? So let's just go over this because this is extremely important, and this is like one of the first times we've done training on the sensei model, right? So sensei model, the sensei segmentation model. So if we're talking about the segment, what is the segment? The segment is the policy decision making on, and then the policy is you must have responsibility organizing open during work, right? That's the policy, right? So in the sensei segmentation model, the segment is this one specific policy, right? So how do you educate about this policy? You present the policy as a policy proposal, right? Policy proposal. And then the worker is forced to vote on it. So vote 0 to 9 on your agreement and understanding of the policy, right? So then you have a policy proposal that they have to vote on, and in order to vote on this, they're going to need to have information. So then you have the educational component, and so the educational component is basically the information and details about the policy. This could involve video links, it could involve the description, it could involve these 4 steps right here that we have, right? It could even involve this video that we're creating right now. We're going to go into policy tracking here soon if we don't take a break. But the bottom line is that the voting process forces the education, because they're not going to vote on it without understanding it, and then they're going to want to understand it, and then they're going to learn about it, and then they're going to actually be like, is this a good policy? I don't know, maybe we should rethink this policy. So then you get the feedback loop, and that's where the value comes in. So either it's a good policy, then you valued and double, triple, quadruple check this policy that is a good policy and everyone understands it, or it's a bad policy and there's still confusing things about it and needs to be improved. And this is every single worker. So then you issue the value. You say, okay, how much time you get a token per vote. So you're basically getting a vote token, right? And you're getting your education time, right? And then you interconnect the value with the education and the decision making all together. And for me, this is the foundation to sensei segmentation model training. And you're doing one single policy at a time, one single whatever it is at a time. And instead of just presenting it as training, you're presenting it as a vote, right? We're asking them to vote on this because not only do they understand it, we want them to agree to it. So it takes it up a whole nother level and creates a feedback mechanism to ensure that they are empowered, because you're training them that they're actually empowered and that these policies actually matter and that they're actually agreeing to them. So it's a very exciting thing, and we're experiencing that right now. Right? So the best way for you to learn and understand this policy is to go over it and to vote on it like I just presented. Right? So it's like, do you agree with it? If you don't agree with it and you think that it should be done another way, then you vote no and you say how it should be changed to improve it. That's the segmentation model. That's the sensei segmentation model, because there's no reason to go over this without, 1, learning it, and 2, having agreement, no matter how simple the policy is. And then people will actually learn it because they're engaged with it instead of it just being fed to them like brainwashing or whatever. It's like something they're engaged with because they're actually voting on it and they have to think analytically about it. So it's quite powerful. So again, for me, if we were finishing this, there's 2 things that would happen. 1, we would vote on it. So in this case, I would vote you would have questions, concerns, and then you vote. And so for me, I don't know, maybe I'm going to vote my 8 on this policy. 8.25. And then you would vote on it, and you would see where you're at, and then until everyone's voted on it, we just don't even know whether it's a good policy or not.
Correct. I'm going to 8.99.
8.99, great. So it's like the policy could be perfect, but the problem might be in the education, right? So if the education, if you're not educating the policy properly, people won't be able to vote on it and understand it and agree to it, because it's very difficult to vote on something that you don't even understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, that like this was really good to actually finally get into the Sensei model and also understand how the segmentation and Sensei model is so valuable for everything in the organization. It's like a fully encapsulated system that connects everything together in modular and segmented little parts, and it involves training, education, involves the value. So then the next step after we voted, we then would stop, right? Just like every segmentation, as soon as we're done with the segment, we would stop, and then we would issue a vote token, and then we spent time on this. So there's like what? Let's say we spent 30 minutes on improving, the policy and reviewing it, right? So we're each getting 30 minutes of policy review token, right? 30 minutes policy review token. So to start with, instead of just doing it as an actual token, we can start with a Discord channel, right? Discord channel. So we have a whole server set up for this.
No, Abeje, this is incredible.
Of course, it's incredible. I've been trying to get this into our models for so long, and
this is amazing.
We never schedule for it. We never go over it. And again, it's like when you are empowering the team, you're actually going through the experience of voting on and understanding the policies themselves. It transforms everything, face value. So instead of it being like us forcing them to follow policy, it's actually the opposite. It's them forcing everyone else to do the policy based on their vote, right?
Right.
And then through that, they want to learn it and they want to understand the policies.
But this vote token, let's say these tokens are only on they're only distributed as an when there is an education experience happening, right? Or they can be for anything.
Well, the idea of a vote token, I mean, again, the difference of like when anyone ever votes, you can value that as a vote token.
Every time there is a proposal and we discuss about it, we make questions and we vote, then we stop and we do this. Every time there is like proposal, a decision to make, right? Voting, there's this education through the voting.
Segmented. Yeah, every decision would be segmented as its own decision, and then you're distributing, you're building and encapsulating the education, the actual decision proposal, and the value of that, right?
And I would call it education token.
Well, no, the education token is just time. The vote token would be that you can actually issue a token for every single vote separate from the time in the education. Right? So every time someone votes, you can actually issue a token. So if you could vote really fast in 20 different proposals, you get 20 tokens in however long it would take you to vote on 20 proposals.
Right. So when you say issue a voting token, you issue a single voting token. Vote token. One only.
If we wanted to. It's not something that we have to do, but I'm just saying if we wanted to, we could do that. But the bottom line is that we spent 30 minutes on the policy proposal segment of having responsibility of organizing available for when working, or open when working. Okay. So anyways, I just made a channel under projects. So under the segmentation model or the sensing model, we can just document that we voted on it. We both agreed, so, we basically re-voted on this. And this is where the segmentation comes in, is you're building these segments of education and value that then are documented and, basically will become its own. Basically, when we talk about policy and methodology, the entire policies and methodology presentation would be presented as both a series of proposals for everyone to vote on based on priority, and then second as value, right? That by voting on these proposals and by engaging in the process of education and improving them, you are automatically issued value. right? So you're combining the decision making, the education about the decisions you're making, and the value all into each individual segment. Okay.
Yeah, it's
And that is just the foundation to the sensei and the segmentation model. There is also 4 or 5 additional components that make it even more exciting, but that is the foundation.
yeah, amazing. I don't know how you come up with the things, but really cool, Jay. Yeah. So my mind is
Well, it's like
is tripping now. Yeah.
well, we've been talking about this as our mission. I mean, our mission is
Yeah.
to create
Yes, exactly.
to help create economic, decision-making, and educational infrastructures, right, to improve the life experience on this planet, right? That's our mission overall, right?
Yeah.
And that structure, it took me years and years. I mean, that's been our mission for years and years and years. So I'm constantly thinking about education. I'm constantly thinking about, decision-making models and economic models. And basically the bottom line is that once we got into the sensei model, it's like, okay, it's overwhelming and it's too much to try to separate education and have separate decision making and have separate economic value, and everything's always separate, and we're going all these different directions, so you have so much work, it's like endless, right? So I was basically thinking, okay, how can we combine all 3 of these into one single thing that just unifies the value, the decision making, and the education all together? When we go through decision making, in order to make a good decision, you have to be educated and you have to have the information. So boom, that's a pretty simple thing. And then you just issue the value, and then boom, next thing you know, it's all combined. Right? So it was pretty straightforward concept in terms of like why you would come to this conclusion, but it took many years of thinking about it in order to connect the dots.
Yeah.
But it's a natural, you can see how it's just a perfectly natural step in understanding, because it just makes perfect sense, that when you're making decisions, you're also educating, and the value of the education and the decision making, especially with each new person who gets involved, so that they're re-establishing that proposal, it is infinitely valuable, because you're constantly, instead of like once every quarter, once a year doing an evaluation session, you're constantly evaluating all of the proposals and policies and systems that you're using. So as long as you're actively using something, it's constantly getting reviewed and improved. So, and it's all happening in real time. So it's really cool.
Really cool, Jay. And
anyway, to get more into the sensei model, like I think we should take a 5-minute break and come back, see if we can get some agreement on our topics.
we should definitely take a 5-minute break. And I just wanted to share something quickly, right? That from what you're saying, then we can take the break. So I'll take a minute. But so I too now, like the other day, I was saying, okay, what with all this now methodology evolution that we're doing, right? So okay, so what we are doing really is the bottom line here with Jay is we are creating new models. This is what
we're creating economic decision making and educational infrastructures, and the key, and that is very, very important. We're not creating an idea. We're not creating, we're creating a legal infrastructure that is grounded into corporate models, decision-making models, blockchain models, automated systems. That has to be infrastructure. Otherwise, it does not meet our mission, because if it's not infrastructure, it's not scalable and it's not replicable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, exactly. And I'm starting to exactly. It's so cool. It's amazing, right, to do this work. And so what happens is that now I have this. You know that I teach German, right? And I have this new how do you say, this new student or whatever, and he wants to learn German and Italian, right? So we made a schedule and everything. So I went today. I basically like set up a mini version of FQN for him. I called it Joao. His name is Joao Educational System. Yeah, so it's pretty cool in general. Yeah, the influence, right, of
I
this.
don't totally understand. I don't totally understand that, but I mean, if you were technically creating a mini version of QN and having it be like a node or some sort of like component of something, you know, it would do two things. One, it would, you know, it could potentially create a node and would be documented and would be part of the overall, you know, programs. But then two, it also can go back to the organization in terms of the automated system of what do you call it? You know, recognition and you know, like it's like if we use somebody's like for example, when we're making a logo under our policies, if we use an image, right, of that to create our own image, we're utilizing their image, and that's value. And so that value under our model automatically is linked back, and then it automatically issued as community equity and value for you know, an equity or whatever in terms of utilizing the systems. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. No, I mean, for sure. My plan is to create because what I told him is that instead of going through some books or some things, right, we just create our own customized system, right? And as I told you, I don't care what we do. What I care is that we have agreement on what we do first, and we create a system that is customized to you to give you the best experience possible, and to learn as fast as possible, as efficient as possible, German and Italian. And of course, if of course, if the thing is has any value and it's cool, which I believe it can become a very cool thing that can be scalable and stuff. I mean, of course, these would all be under FQN and could even become something that we could, you know, that we could give, like, for, it's like a responsibility organizing, but I mean, it's like a system to learn German and Italian, all in English as well. So we're doing it all in English because thanks God he speaks very well English. And yeah, of course, I mean, my idea from the beginning when I started to think about it is absolutely become something cool or stuff should definitely maybe become a component of our showcase website, or I don't know, of our educational programs or something.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it all evolves. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think any of that's necessary. I mean, I'm just saying that under our models, like you were saying that you're replicating your model, you're utilizing it. I'm just noting that as part of it. But anyways, let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah,
And we can come back and ideally get some focus. Okay?
Yeah, perfect. 5 minute break.
Okay, cool.